Hello and welcome to another episode of DCU Daily. We are back. We have been out for a few days for vacation reasons, and also because there was some really bad weather, which made it very difficult for us to keep our electricity up. But nonetheless, I mean, even where I am now, there's all kinds of thunderstorms going outside. If you're on the East Coast in the U.S., it's been really hot and now it's really stormy. So, with that in mind, John, it's thankfully not that bad in Cleveland, and that's where Superman has continued to film. They were filming yesterday. I believe they were wrapping up filming today.
Mhm.
So we're going to dive into all that. We're going to also look, back at some of the stuff that was being filmed later in the week last week when they were at Progressive Field in Cleveland, filming the fight between Superman and the engineer, and maybe even Mr. Terrific, and of course the mystery character that we don't quite know a ton about. And there's some video of that as well that Cleveland.com put out. So we got a lot to get into. There's some stuff going on with ComicCon, the biggest event of the summer for all of us comic book nerds. So there's a lot of announcements from DC. We have got our first look at Kevin Conroy's last appearance as Batman. So as a voice of Batman, we're going to get into that as well. So there's just a ton to get into. So how was your day and how was your weekend, John? You were on vacation. How'd it go?
It went pretty well. Vegged out, relaxed. Didn't have to worry about a thing for a couple days, so that was good. But I'm back in action, talking about more Superman because this will go on and on for the next 5 years. We're gonna be just like there's still gonna be film even when the film gets released. We're still gonna be talking about it being filmed. So
Hey,
that's just what it
that's how it
seems like
goes.
right now.
That's how it goes. He
Mhm.
is Superman is the flagship. He is the franchise. So Hunter Iggy says hi in the chat. Hunter Iggy, hello. He says, "Dude, what's up?" Actually, to be more accurate. But hey, dude, what's up? How are you doing? We missed
What
you.
up?
But John, this is the from last Wednesday. They were shooting in a hole in the ground, and I remember
Yeah.
saying Superman getting pummeled into the ground way too often. But uh, I'm gonna
Look,
just skip
look at.
past
I'm
that.
I'm sorry to cut you off, but like, look at that cape. Hold on.
Yeah,
Look how good that looks. Even with the dusty debris on him, that cape. It just
yeah.
ugh,
You know what
majestic.
gets me? It's just the fact that you see Superman walk by you with an umbrella in the middle of an incredibly hot day, I'm sure it was, and people are just like probably geeking out on the inside, just like I'm a
Yeah.
extra on the set of a Superman movie, and they're Superman, and David Corenswet looks the part, like he looks like he
Yeah.
is Superman just walking by.
Hmm.
But there's this piece of video where you can kind of get to see what that day looked like because
Hmm.
they had this hole in the ground Superman is emerging from, and you've got all this crowd gathered around him. So, and again, this kind of leads into the whole idea of this Superman is still sort of struggling with maybe, or just he's still a little new to the world at large. um the other thing I'm noticing here is there's some people on a crane throwing stuff. I don't know if those are snowballs, what those are.
I
What
think
do
it's
you think
like
is going on
debris. I
here?
think it's like debris, maybe,
Yeah.
or maybe they're just chucking stuff because it's fun to chuck stuff. I mean,
Well, they're clearly part of the
that's what
crew.
I would do on a crane. I would just chuck stuff because
I
chuck
mean,
stuff
but,
at
like, I'm wondering
cars.
what's going on here because, like, you can see Superman's down there, you got the crowd gathered around, there's a couple of cameras set up there. It looks like they didn't close off everything there. I mean,
Hmm.
although because that looks like normal street traffic.
Yeah.
Like, what or is it? I mean, it might not be because if they're throwing debris on, you can see the Metropolis, what are they called again? The Metros? Is
The
that
meteors, the
the
meteors.
meteors, Metropolis meteors, sorry. A few days have gone by. Metropolis meteors, their signs are on the street, so this must be
Hmm.
traffic that's part of the background of the scene. Because I mean, you can
Yeah.
also see across the way there's a Metropolis, police car. So, I mean, what were your thoughts about this day of filming? Like, what do you think they were filming that day? What do you think is happening here where Superman ends up in a hole in the ground?
Probably a fight's going on and gets, struck into the ground and in the middle of a
Just
bustling
sleeping
city.
in there for a
Yeah.
bit?
I like how he's like like the other one. He was like pointing his finger, like wagging his finger, like how dare you, sir? How dare you fucking punch me into the ground? That first picture that we saw. But I just
Uh,
love how he's just like emerges like, all right, yeah, all right, another day, another fucking bullshit thing. All right, let's go.
I mean, it's to me this is fun to see because you're getting to see all these pieces of what's going to be a big fight sequence, obviously,
Mm-hmm.
because we've been this entire time we've seen a lot of the same extras in some. I think I've definitely noticed 3 or 4 people who were like the same outfit and they were just background extras across 2 weeks. So like clearly they've been filming one big sequence for a lot of this time, which perhaps start with Superman fighting by himself, and then eventually he ends up getting involved with the other members of the Justice League International, and then at some point the
Mm-hmm.
engineer shows up, which we will
Ooh,
get into.
I like this
And
look
and
right here.
and
Sorry
by
to
the
cut you off, but I
yeah
like this look where it's like just like adding with the truck, like the coffee truck and like the umbrellas and the extras. It brings in like that retro feel that I like,
yeah
that I keep mentioning. I really like that. But it clearly shows it's definitely takes place in modern day because
they've
he
got
has
phones.
the old guy has a phone, so the
Hmm.
fucking diet Steven Spielberg looking motherfucker. So I know I keep mentioning that, but I just love that, and I love
Yeah,
this feel right here. I love this look, the earthly tones, as we were mentioning. Although she does have red, that girl on the left, she does have red, so that's interesting. Um, but I like that. I just wanted to throw that in there as well.
yeah, yeah. I mean, but it's also just James Gunn having fun on set. Like there's a dog dressed like Superman that was on set. I just spoke about that for like 10 minutes the other day. But moving a bit further ahead, like what happened later on Thursday was just this fight sequence. We were talking about they've been preparing to shoot some stuff within Progressive Field where the Guardians play, the Cleveland Guardians. It was All-Star weekend, so the field was empty, and baseball is off for a few days, and so they scheduled it perfectly, of course, and
Yeah,
you have this sequence where of course the engineer seemingly lands on Superman, on Superman's on his back getting dragged on the field and
that's
taking a
very
few
cool.
punches.
It looks like funny now because they're
Yeah,
clearly being like controlled by like a dolly and they're being pulled. But like
right.
once you add like the dirt that's being like cropped up and like
Yeah,
when you're adding all
they're
the
gonna replace
effects
the
and
the mat that they're on,
yeah,
the
yeah,
stunt mat.
yeah,
Yeah,
of course it's gonna look fucking cool as shit.
yeah,
Um so I think there was a scene like that in Man of Steel where I think Zod where it was I think it was Superman or Zod, I forget, where they were going through a street, I think, where it was like
yeah.
asphalt. That was really
Mhm.
cool. I mean,
But you know
say
what?
what
They
you will
should
about Man of Steel, and I know I have, but like the action in that scene in that
in
movie
mov
was
in movies
pretty damn great, even though it
top
goes on
notch.
for
Yeah,
way too long. It's
it's
very
top. Yeah,
repetitive, but hey, it's you know very cool. So I like this kind of look to it. And I
yeah.
just love the people like chasing it. Like I know it's like for a reason they're filming it, but it just looks like very funny. Them like, hey, wait. I don't know. It just looks funny to me.
This is how the movie magic is made, people. This
Yeah.
is this is what it takes for the camera to get the
Especially the
shot that it
guy
needs.
in blue that's just
The
like,
guy,
wait a minute. Wait. You
I mean,
forgot your iPod. Like, just
that to me is clearly somebody who's probably trying to get some behind the scenes
yeah.
stuff, footage and stuff.
Oh
That's
yeah,
not.
because it looks like he has
Yeah,
like a phone or maybe like some type of
yeah.
yeah, that's very
Or maybe
very
like a
cool.
little gimbal camera on like a stick kind of a thing, you know? But like you mentioned Zack Snyder's Man of Steel, where he shot things very differently. He did a lot of stuff on the streets, like sets where they were physically shooting. I forget where they shot some of those things that were meant to double as the downtown area of Smallville, but they definitely shot some of it on the streets for real with real reference lighting, of course, but then they did a lot of the action stuff in big blue screen studios, and it was a combination of the two. In some sequences you could tell the entire environment was CG. What I wonder is how much what that balance is going to look like for this movie, because we have obviously seen a lot of the stuff they're shooting out in the open, but they also spent months filming in a soundstage. So for all we know, a lot of this stuff they've shot before, and certain shots they did completely in a blue screen studio, and then there's certain shots here where they're, of course, they're outside, so that the reference lighting is good, and they only have to replace like maybe just the ground under Superman, and the dirt that's being thrown up is all CG, but everything else is practical. What do you think like James Gunn's approach might be here? Like how much, because I know Zack Snyder, for example, is known not to shy away from using CG environments, right? Like he will shoot his actors on a green screen or blue screen studio set
Mhm.
and completely replace a lot of their surroundings, especially when he was trying to get that real comic book Sin City sort of a vibe for the Batman versus Superman, especially when they're fighting each other in the rainstorm. I mean, pretty much all of that was shot, on a stage, and then the entire environment was CG. Whereas, in Man of Steel, we saw more of the practical, like, surroundings where they were in real
Mhm.
environments. Given James Gunn's track record with Guardians of the Galaxy, how much of that mix do you think you're going to see here? The Guardians movies take place in space a lot, so you naturally have to either
Yeah.
create big sets or film a lot in a blue screen. But Superman is on Earth. He's
Well,
in
unless
Metropolis.
it was directed by Chris
You know,
Nolan. We're shooting the fucking thing in space, on space, in space. I don't care what we're doing. We're gonna invent technologically advanced spaceships. We're filming it in space. Goddamn, all practical. That would be hysterical. Not gonna lie, I
mhm.
can see it happening. I mean, the man detonated an actual nuke, so like he'll do anything for that practical shot. But kidding aside, I mean, as you said, they're doing, what is it, 25% of the shooting is in
They're shooting roughly
Ohio,
25, a quarter of this movie in Cleveland or in Ohio, across
in
Ohio.
Ohio. So that
Yeah.
leaves 75%. I don't know if it's 75%, like all that's going to be on sound stages, or is it going to be another 25% in another state, or what? So as far as we know, 3/4 of the movie is not going to be shot in Ohio, which is a is the majority of the film. So if I
Mhm.
were to guess, I would say I feel like 25% is going to be like, I assume we're going to get some Kansas scenes. They did show the
Mhm.
farmhouse a
Yeah,
couple
they
weeks
did.
back.
Yeah.
We're getting, I mean, we have Ma and Pa Kent in the movie, and it seems like we're getting a post-crisis Pa Kent where he's alive, because
Right.
James Gunn did say, he's like, well, I wouldn't cast this actor if I wasn't going to use him for more than 5 seconds. So it seems like we're getting that. So I would imagine, I don't think 25% of the movie is going to be shot in Kansas, but I would say like maybe like 5 to 10%, and then maybe another 5 to 10% somewhere else, maybe another 5 to 10%. I feel like I don't want to say 75% is going to be shot on a sound stage. I would say half of it. I think a good like half of the movie would be shot on a sound stage, and then we're going to get another 20, that other 25% that's missing so far, it's going to be shot in other places,
Yeah.
whether that be actually I don't know
Right.
where that farmhouse was, somewhere in the Midwest. I don't know if it was Kansas specifically, but
I mean, it could be in Ohio. I mean, it could
it could have
easily.
been.
It could be in upstate New York. Like it could be in
Yeah,
in East Western Pennsylvania. There's all kinds of, like
exactly. Yeah.
yeah, there's all kinds of, like, it just depends on production. I think it would make sense that they might have done that in Ohio, because they're spending roughly. So here's the thing: the Greater Cleveland Film Commission uh, gave them a tax credit of roughly $11 million. And based on the policy as to how those tax credits are applied, there's certain, like, you have to spend a certain amount of money to get a certain amount of tax credits.
Yep.
I was reading that, some news outlets did the math on that. And so if you go by like the fact that they got $11 million in tax credits, they estimated that the movie has spent roughly $37 million filming out in Ohio, between Cleveland and Cincinnati. And we're going to talk about Cincinnati in a little bit as well. But, of course, they've done a lot of filming in Cleveland. So the budget for this movie, we know, is roughly $200 million, somewhere between 150 to $200 million. So yeah, I mean, they've been spending a ton of money filming out there. I mean, and you know, that's just an estimate. For all we know, it could have been even more. And yeah, given the amount of stuff they've shot out there, roughly a quarter of the movie. Now, since we're on this picture, I wanted to kind of ask you, like, what are you getting here now in terms of the sense of how Superman is going to be interacting with the engineer, this mystery character? Because there's a video we're going to get into, which is going to give us a little more insight into maybe just what this character is and what his powers are. But
Right.
up until this scene was shot, or this sequence, we saw Superman being arrested by the engineer, this mystery character, and Frank Grillo playing Rick Flag Sr. We know Rick Flag doesn't have powers, right?
Yeah. We
He's a
know that.
military man. These other two people clearly have powers. We just thought Superman sort of got arrested because he was just like submitted, you know, he was really willfully just, you know, getting arrested so that he can go
Mhm.
and maybe plead his case in City Hall, kind of like, you know, in Man of Steel, where he hands himself over to the military so the military can hand them to General Zod and the Kryptonians. This leads me to believe there's maybe that's not quite the case. Either this happens after the arrest or this leads up to the arrest. Like, is Superman actually contained by these people? Like, does Superman actually lose? Because I'm like, that would be hard. I mean, what do you think is going on? Like, what does that even imply? Like, is this fight going to lead it to his arrest, or is this fight after the arrest? Especially because there's a video that I'm going to get into in a bit where you might be seeing Mr. Terrific getting involved. Like, I'm starting to like now wonder how exactly do these
Yeah.
jigsaw puzzles go into place? Like, what are your thoughts on
Well,
this fight sequence?
from Superman's face, it looks like the Taco Bell is hitting at the worst possible moment. But like that is just that's when you just have a crunch
Yeah,
wrap supreme, and you're just like, I can't make it through the day. I gotta go. So
yeah.
sometimes, man. But outside of
I,
that, I mean, we have him getting like he's on a rig. He's on a CGI rig.
they call
So
like so in the world of movie making, they call that a fork, for lack
thank
of
you very
better.
much.
Just a
I
fork.
know a lot of things. I don't know everything.
Yeah,
So thank you
it's
for
just
that
yeah.
lesson.
Because
Um,
obviously they're gonna replace the, you know, all the blue elements. It's just
right,
it's in situations where the actors need to be able to move their arms around and do like what Superman is doing here. You can't put him on wires because then the wires will, like, you know, be where your arms need to fling and do
yeah,
movement. So they just call it a fork, where they're literally, it's like a tuning. It's not meant to be like a fork that you eat with. It's more a reference to the tuning fork, you know, like
right,
for music, where they've literally got you suspended in between, you know, where they've got, you know, and everything else. Where his feet land at the bottom is just for him to support himself, but he could practically, you know, just rotate at the pivot point where
right.
he's tied in at the hip. So that's
So
what that is.
yeah, so on the fork, he's clearly being like punched or kicked,
Or
like
yeah,
like like from someone with super strength far away, and the engineer's on the ground. So I assume he's getting punched or he's having a violent interaction with our mystery man, because clearly the engineer is not doing anything. She's on the ground. She's out of commission
yeah.
for the time being. So clearly, I was thinking like I was envisioning what Batman did in BVS, where he
Hmm.
fucking hooks him with the grappling hook and then he swings him fucking around. It reminded me of that scene a little bit.
Yeah.
So it's it reminded me of that, but I don't know how. Maybe he grabs him by the cape and he swings him around. Maybe he's just like punching him. He punched him really hard and now he's just like and something like that. But I feel like he's getting punched by our mystery man. So
Yeah. I mean,
and
and
there he is.
yeah, and then of course the mystery man spears him in slow motion, which I so
Yeah,
talk me through this. I mean, that could be a stunt man there. We can't really
yeah,
tell who he is, but he doesn't have the mask on at this point. Um,
yeah,
we did have what was it? What's his name? Stephen Blakeheart, I
yeah.
think, right? By the way, I like the Metropolis Waste Management logo because it might just be like an extension of the real company Waste Management. Somehow, like getting a sponsorship. But James Gunn tagged Stephen Blakeheart in this post when he released the official logo of the movie, which looks fantastic, by the way. Um, the timing of that. versus and you know the unknown. We don't know how he's involved in the
Mm-hmm.
movies. Stephen Blakeheart has worked with James Gunn before. We are talking about this mystery character. We see that this mystery character in this sequence, you know,
Mm-hmm.
he's getting up and then going to spear Superman for some reason, but
Right.
he doesn't have his mask on. Try to what is going on here? Like, try to piece this together for me. Like, what, like, and then the power set for this character too. Like, is he, if he's moving in slow motion, does that imply that he can move as fast as Superman? So they have to slow things down, or are they just
Maybe.
shooting in slow motion like it's a Zack Snyder movie? This, by the way, here looks really interesting because you can see the engineers pummeling um, the is that Mr. Terrific in one corner while you got Superman and like I'm wondering what's going
Yeah.
on. Like, there's a lot
So
happening here. Talk me
so it
through
looks
this.
like it's gonna be a foursome. It's gonna be a four-person fight between Man in Black, Mr. Terrific, Engineer, and Soups.
And by the way, this looks
So
like a drone shot. Like somebody got a drone up in the air to film all this.
yeah, way to
Really
go,
cool.
guys! Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You're the real heroes. Anyway, so it looks like Soups and our mystery man, whoever he is, they were fighting, but Engineer has Mr. Terrific. Maybe he came in later. Maybe my imagining is like trying to piece the fight together because we saw the Engineer and Superman fighting. I'm thinking Engineer was beating the shit out of Superman, or he was beating the shit out of her. Practicing his Jonathan Majors impression and just beating the shit out of her. So he, they're fighting, and then Mr. Terrific comes in later and to try and help out, and then they're like, okay, cool, now it's 2 versus 1, but then the Engineer obviously being smart and being like, hey, Man in Black, whoever, Ultraman, Bizarro, whoever the fuck you are, I need some help here. So Engineer is like, you take care of him. I want Mr. Terrific. He interrupted this fight with Superman, so I'm gonna fucking kill him, and then you fucking deal with our boy in blue over here. So so she goes off and beats the shit out of Mr. Terrific, and then he's fighting Man in Black, Ultraman, Ulysses, Captain Atom, Metamorpho, fucking Condiment King, whoever the fuck this guy is. And they they deal with him, and yeah, so I think that's where the fight is if I were to guess. And it's very clear that it's a man. He's like covered. Maybe it's Midnighter. I don't know, but
It's
so we know
yeah.
it's like that. Clearly, the Engineer is an antagonist here. We don't know if she's a villain. We don't, because obviously, as many people have said, I know I've talked about in the past. Oh, the Authority, villains. They're not really villains. They're anti-heroes. And she's not really normally a villain, so maybe she gets a little bit better and she becomes an anti-hero by the end of this. But for right now, she's an antagonist. Whether she's a straight-up villain or an anti-hero here, we don't know just yet. But clearly she is an antagonistic force.
Yeah.
So we have that. And then Man in Black, I feel like, is going to be like a secondary antagonist to Lex Luthor. And then but he's going to be more villainous, I feel. He's going to be more villain. And so that's what we're kind of seeing here.
I mean,
And
it's also, you know how you notice
I
that they
also
did a
wanted to say, sorry to cut you off. I'm sorry
yeah.
to cut you off. But and the rubble on the ground next to Mr. Terrific, it looks like his jetpack thing got broken.
Oh
So
shit,
he
you're right.
probably
Completely
came
smashed
in
it up.
on his jetpack, and then she just probably grabbed him and beat it into the ground, and it just shattered into a million pieces. I was like, because I was looking at them, like, what is that? And now I'm like looking into it, you could see the parts of like the jetpack. Like you could see like the all the way on the left, you could see that bulbous sort of thing, and then you can see a leg part on the right there. So clearly he was on his like fancy schmancy jetpack, and and then it gets broken during the fight. So I just saw that. I was just like, I was looking. That's what it is. So yeah. So sorry, what were you gonna say?
I was gonna say, so earlier in this video, they practiced the take in slow-mo, which is common, right? Because you don't wanna, it's like a dance move. You practice your steps in slow motion. Like, oh, you do it slowly, right? You get your beats right. You make sure your contact points are rehearsed so that you're not gonna like basically go head first into his belly, for example, and you actually, it's also, these guys are on wires, so like all the people who are pulling the wires need to make sure their movements are correct, the timing is right, and then later in the video, you could tell they actually go at like real speed, like here, like watch this, right? So boom, that looks like to me, and then it seems like they pick up the pace, so that the more takes they do, they're like faster. All right, let's go faster, let's go faster than that. Like, and then the biggest thing that I look at here, and it looks like there's a few different things happening here, or either that or they flubbed that take completely, where he was supposed to spear him and he ended up like being more like head almost into his shoulders. But the way this mystery man is running, he's got some weight to him,
Yeah.
because Superman doesn't move that same way. It's almost like he's the Thing from Fantastic Four, right? Like where he's heavier than he looks, maybe. So is that hinting at maybe what this character might be? Like, does that tell you anything about who this character might be?
Yeah, he might be more of a hulking mass type of thing. Maybe like I'm thinking Parasite, because that's like the only other hulking mass of like something I could think of, because Parasite can be attributed to Lex Luthor in the comics, as well as other. I know in Superman Man of Tomorrow, the animated film, he was a product of Luthor Corp, Lex Corp. So there's that. We have a purple-ish suit. I mean, because you can see it right here. You can see it right
Yeah,
here that he's kind of purpley. I don't know if that's the lighting
right.
hitting him just right, but it was kind of. But even we noticed beforehand in the other pictures that he kind of had like a dark purple. And Parasite is usually purple, or like a very dark purple, maybe like indigo. But mainly he's a purple character. So I'm thinking like maybe um he's like Parasite here, and then he's like maybe he's like kind of awkwardly shooting stuff. Maybe he's like getting bigger. Maybe they plan, even though maybe I have an idea, because
Okay.
James Gunn is good at hiding shit. And
Uh-huh.
James Gunn understands, as we've said many times before, he's a fan, he understands fans. Maybe this is all bullshit. Maybe, okay, hear me out. It's Parasite. Because Parasite would be a good like secondary antagonist, because Parasite, we haven't seen him in live action yet. Outside of like the TV shows, in a live action movie. So we haven't seen him yet. What if James Gunn knows that people are gonna fucking leak this shit? Because he knows. He knows, like, he fucking hates Grace Randolph, as he said. What was that quote? It was like, mothers love their children, people go to jobs every day, Grace Randolph spouts bullshit. Like, that was something he tweeted years
That's
ago.
hilarious.
Like, he fucking hates Grace Randolph, which is fair because
Uh,
Grace Randolph sucks. But maybe he knew, he's like, okay, I gotta get a one up on these fans that are gonna fucking leak my movie. I
mhm.
gotta get a one up. So he purposefully has this character, and he's like, okay, I'm gonna leak that it's this character named Ultraman, that I'm gonna be using the name of the crime syndicate character, and then gonna be making him into Bizarro. And then I'm gonna put the actor in a suit that has a U on it, but it's totally gonna be CGI'd out, and it's gonna be Parasite. That would be a good one up, because as we've seen, like, the engineer, she kind of has some tracking dots. But again, as
Mhm.
both of us know, the
You
technology
don't
has
need
gotten
that.
so good, you don't really need those anymore. So in order to like one up people, he's like, okay, yeah, clearly. Oh, look, because he said, he's like, I wouldn't spoil my movie if I knew what like, I wouldn't spoil my movie because I have to shoot the fucking thing in broad daylight. People are gonna get pictures and videos and audio and all this other shit. Clearly, I gotta get a one up so my movie isn't spoiled. So he gets this leak out that it's Ultraman, aka Bizarro. He
Yeah.
puts him in a suit. that's like kind of superhero-esque, kind of not, kind of militaristic, and then it's all just it looks nothing like that in the final movie, just so he can get a one up on fans who are gonna spoil this shit. That's my theory. It's gonna be Parasite. He's not gonna look like that in the final movie, and that's what he looks like now, so it doesn't spoil the actual movie. I'm calling it in now. I'm calling it in. That's my theory. Call it bullshit if you want. That's fine. That's just my theory. Hey, and I'm just gonna say this. I have some good theories. I called Rey being a Palpatine way back when Force Awakens came out. So that's
dude, but
like,
that was.
I'm just gonna say that I called that. I'm like, okay, she's not gonna be a Skywalker.
I'll give it to you.
She's either gonna be a Palpatine or a Kenobi, and I'm gonna be like, all right, let's go, and then we'll see, and then boom, called it.
Right.
So I'm good. That's my thing. He's gonna be Parasite. He's not gonna look like that, and James Gunn is only doing this to one up fans so that it doesn't get spoiled.
Yeah. By the way, like one thing about this sequence here, you could tell like Mr. Perfect's got punched out, and the engineer sort of has a stare down with Superman, and Superman kind of ends up in a Mexican standoff where this mystery character is on one side, and then the engineer, and then Superman's like, who do I go after first? And they keep filming takes of this, which is kind of cool because I mean I think this also gives us insight into maybe the cinematography, because clearly that camera then has to, like, you can see the cameraman, they're doing like a whole whip, not a whip pan, but the camera moves with Superman in his perspective. Sort of, you're going to see him looking in this direction, and then as he turns his head, the camera pivots with him. So I think just the action choreography, and then just how the camera is moving around, I love how it's going to look very dynamic in that whole situation. What I also wonder is if this is meant to be going on and the stadium's meant to be empty, or are they going to fill in a CGI crowd? Like if this is in the middle of some kind of event going on, like, do you think they're going to go that far, or do you think this is mostly going to end up being a situation where they just happen to end up in a stadium fighting? Because it looks a little like, empty, right? Like it's like you're fighting in a stadium with a bunch of empty seats. You could do it, but it's going to be, it doesn't give it the same sense of scale as opposed to if you have like, because can you imagine if they put in a CGI crowd? It's gonna look like a gladiator match, Like
yeah, I think that could be it, but I think also James Gunn wants to avoid some of the criticisms that people had with Man of Steel, like why didn't he take the fight away from the city type shit? Because I feel like now Snyder fans are going to bring that back into like circulation.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the anti-Snyder fans in Man of Steel are like, why didn't he fucking take the fight away from Earth and blah 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 and all that shit. So I feel like now Snyder Bros are going to be like, well, why didn't he take the fight away? He's fighting in the middle of Metropolis. So I feel like that's going to be a thing now. So I don't think there's going to be people there, because then you're going to kind of add like, well, he's endangering innocents. Superman wouldn't do that. So it might be empty. That could be a cool
sequence, like, they're going to have Anderson Cooper come on the news and CNN and then be like, thank God it's the middle of the evening. The downtown area is completely empty. Everybody has gone home. So that while Doomsday is getting his ass beat, no civilians are dying. The over explanation of that because Zack Snyder. I'm sorry, that's my rant of the day.
I'm sorry. I'm just looking at the comments where Man of Steel Magnolias was just like, my ex-wife was Parasite. Ouch. All right. Damn. I'm sorry, sir or ma'am. I don't know who you are. But like, damn. Okay.
Sorry, that's savage. Anyway, sorry. CGI crowd or no CGI crowd? Like, what do you think?
Personally, I don't think they're gonna go for that, but it could be a cool sequence if they do add it. But I don't think they're gonna do it.
So then, kind of going back, okay, let me actually pull this up again. I had the footage of Mr. Terrific getting completely destroyed. I really like what they're doing here. You could tell they're both gonna have both characters in the air. Now, because you're shooting this from a distance, I don't know the video we're getting is from the distance. Of course, they're going to be filming it up close and from different
Hmm.
angles. They might, I think I noted as many as like 5 or 6 different camera angles being set up for some of these sequences, where some of those could be just for VFX reference. Some of them are actually, what they're going to use in the film itself. So they're probably different kinds of cameras. You're going to do multiple camera angles anyway, because you want to get all your coverage, and there's only so many takes you want to do with stuff like this where you're hanging
Right.
people in the air. But I wonder if they actually have the actors here, or if these are stunt doubles, because they're so far away we can't really tell. But the
I
other thing I
feel like
noticed,
that's
yeah,
literally, once you said that and Mr. Terrific goes falling, I'm like, that's definitely a stunt double because
yeah.
he's like grinding on that mat, and you can see
Well,
the
where
mat.
you land, you can see where. Okay, so let me go back here. You see, like when they start the shot, where your impact point is, you can see the padding there is deeper and thicker than when once he starts getting dragged on the ground. You see there versus once they're already on the ground. So obviously, for safety
Yeah.
purposes, it's been
They have that
modified.
extra grass padding, that padding that looks
Exactly.
like grass. But yeah, but even then, it's still like a drop. It's a big drop. That's like
It's
a
a That's a
story.
risky, because
That's I think
if a wire
it,
snaps, like somebody's gonna get like a
I don't think that's Eddie
broken
Gazzegi. I think that's
back.
a
Yeah.
stunt double. And then I can't really obviously we can't see for the engineer, but I'm gonna say that that
Well,
is
okay.
also a stunt double. I'm
The
gonna
thing
just
about Look at these pictures. I mean, I know they could mix it in during the day, but this clearly looks like, Maria. That's her.
yeah, that's her. Yeah.
That's her. So at least on the day she was there. I mean, I
Yeah.
wouldn't be surprised if she was like, I'm gonna do my own stunts, and sure, send me up in the sky and let me do this by
Yeah, because
myself.
she's not taking the hit, like, she's not taking
Right.
the brunt of it, he's hitting the
Yeah.
ground, so
Which, by the
that
way,
wouldn't shock me.
I've done stuff with stuntmen where they've, had to do like car accidents and stuff, and they wear this padding on for their spine, which they
Mhm.
call the Raptor. And all it is it's
Yes.
kind of like, knee
I
pads and
didn't know
elbow
that.
pads, but for your spine. And it's meant to make sure that you don't like snap your, back in
You
half.
don't get fucking paralyzed, yeah.
Yeah,
So
exactly. So there's definitely, and of course the fact that Mr. Perfect is
mhm,
gonna have a jacket and everything on it, where you could hide all of that very easily.
yeah,
Um, I mean, it
but
looks like they got the take they wanted. So then they start. They're like, "All right, we're done with that.
we're
Let's
done,
wrap up.
okay, yeah, it's like, the
Okay."
stunt man is like,
Yeah.
"Okay, I might be batshit insane, but, like, let's just do one of those." Because as we know,
Yeah.
thanks to the Fall Guy, the stunt men and women are the real true heroes, and, yeah, they are. God, stunt people are fucking batshit insane. They in the
Mhm.
best way possible. But I
Yeah.
mean they have to be because they have to like take the brunt of all this bullshit. But I
Yeah.
remember, yeah, one of my favorites. I might have said this story before. One of my favorite stunt people stories is when I think it was either X-Men or X2. I forget which one. But Wolverine was fighting Mystique. I think that might have been the first one. And there was the scene where like he stops her from actually it might have been X2 where he stops her from like doing something and he like kind of stabs her. And the thing is they were using at the time they were using real metal claws for Wolverine. So like he was supposed to like stop and then they were gonna like kind of stop the cut and then film it
Mhm.
again but with like plastic or rubber
Mhm.
or whatever.
Yeah.
So
Yep. Yep.
but but this was all a stunt person. It wasn't Rebecca Romaine, so this was all a stunt
Right.
person. So but the thing is, Hugh Jackman, who was doing the scene, didn't stop like quick enough, so
Yeah.
he pierced the
The
stunt woman,
this
and
Yeah.
he's like standing there for a sec. He's like, and you see blood pool out of her skin, and he's
Yeah.
like, oh shit, I just fucking stabbed someone, and he's like freaking out. He's like, oh my god, what's gonna happen? And so he removed, of course, like an idiot, he's removed it. Moral of the story: never remove a stab wound. Keep the knife in if you can. That's putting pressure on your wound and not causing it to bleed out. So remember that, folks. But he pulls it out and he's like,
Yeah.
oh
Yeah.
shit. And then the stunt woman, to either the camera or the crew, she's like, I got fucking stabbed by Wolverine. Like she goes like full, like it's like, oh shit. And he's
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
okay, I didn't expect that. But yeah, it just shows the fucking craziness, like literally getting stabbed and bleeding, and you're like, I got fucking stabbed by Wolverine. Fuck yeah, let's go. Just like I love that story because it's just like stunt people, man. They're crazy, but we love them because they
yeah,
are truly amazing, and we love every single one of them. So thanks, guys, for what
yeah.
you do.
I mean, it's just yeah, and then the quickness with which they were moving about because they're like they clearly need to get a ton done, and it's
Oh
not
yeah,
going to be
just
cheap to get time
they don't
on the
have a lot of
field
time at
here.
the stadium. I mean, as you said, their
Exactly.
Guardians are taking a break because the All Star game, so they have like what, like 2 days, not even maybe only a
Yeah.
day to do all this. So they're like, okay, one take, boom, looks great, let's
Yep.
go, that type of shit. So yeah,
Exactly.
that as
And then
well.
you could see there's like multiple camera angles. Like at
Hmm.
one point, you could see this camera is on this like little wagon. I guess I don't know what you want to call that. And at and the cameraman has to then get off of the thing and a running start. That's pretty crazy. And then you can also see there's like several other cameras set up. Like they've got like 4 or 5 different camera setups here. And this is probably the full speed. Boom, right there. I mean, they kind of flubbed that one, but you can see there's got at least 3 cameras in motion. They've got at least 2 cameras on sticks, and then they've probably got behind the scenes stuff going on, which they're gonna use for the DVD or the Blu-ray extras and stuff. It just the scale at which this is being done and the amount of coordination this takes. Again, this is how movie magic is made. Um, but as far as the story side of things go, looking at this sequence now, I want to reframe the question from earlier when we were talking about this. It's we Our theory was Superman, something happens, something crashes, Superman goes there, Mr. Terrific is there, they help save the day. And then Superman was getting arrested at some point by the engineer and this mystery character and Rick Flag Sr. Now we can see that they're in direct conflict here. And clearly, Mr. Terrific is on the side of Superman, and the engineer and this mystery character are not. Do you think this is all connected, or do you think these are different points in the movie? Like, what do you think?
Oh, that could be interesting.
Is it
Where
like one thing leads to the next? Like, what do you like? Because they're like these
I
guys are
mean,
acting outside of. They're not authorized, like agents of the government or something. So the military steps in, and the engineer and this mystery character are part of the military establishment, as is Rick Flag Sr. And so they had to curb because they see them as vigilantes essentially.
mhm.
Like my brain is wondering about the possibilities of what could be going on here.
I don't know. I don't think it's all one. I think it's all one thing. I don't think it can be like multiple things. So, um, but yeah, I think yeah, it's just like one thing just leads to another, and I don't think it's like this do do do, and then like later on like do do do. I don't think that it would just be kind of be seen as repetitive in terms of the setting. So I think it's all just one thing leads to another, and it's just one big sequence. And then I think this is all before. I want to say this is all before the arrest sequence because I know we touched upon that, and then so I think like this would have um this happens beforehand, and then like eventually after the fighting is done, they eventually arrest him and all that. So we have that, and then yes, I agree with that. I think the Elite are great villains because that perfectly showcases. I think it would have been a little bit easy to do the Elite because I mean we've gotten Superman versus the Elite, which was amazing. That's like the best Superman movie we've ever gotten. So well, this shows that there was a stunt double, so that's good. Um, but I think the Elite would have been a little too on the nose. I would prefer like you get those ideas of like Superman remains the moral compass of the world and who we should all strive to be. And you can do that without straight up adapting what's so funny about truth, justice, and the American way. Because I feel like that would have been too much of a crutch. And then because I feel like it was one panel of a comic book and it's like an hour 10 to 20 minute movie. So I feel like you couldn't really do a 2 hour movie here. In terms of like, don't get me wrong, I do like obviously you don't have to straight up adapt it. You can add like many different things to like make it seem fresh and new. But I would have prefer I prefer what James Gunn is doing. Like he's just taking like All-Star Superman, which by the way, read and finished yesterday. I tried to do it before we filmed again, so I finally have that. Finally finished that, and as well as Superman for All Seasons, which I read a long time ago. Um, but but yeah, great stuff. By the way, great. Of course, everyone says it's like the greatest Superman story ever. So I think it's fantastic. There's a couple things I don't like about it, but this isn't a review for All Star Superman. So, but I like how James Gunn is just taking those aspects, doing them here, but also doing his own thing. That's what I prefer. I've talked about that. I think we've talked about this before, where it's like it's better to take various aspects you like of various comic books and then just doing your own thing. Like I like these attributes when it comes to Superman as a character or any character, whatever character you're doing, and then just kind of like making your own puzzle, like taking bits and pieces of puzzles and then just making your own, and it somehow works and it's beautiful. So I think doing that, what James Gunn is doing here is
By the way,
preferable.
what's interesting is like Cleveland.com has seemed to have settled on the idea that this is Ultraman.
Yeah.
Just making a note here. Is that a confirmation? I don't know, but yeah, I think you have a good point there that a direct adaptation of one comic is rarely a good idea because it's, I mean, sometimes it might work, but it's rarely the case. Like even when you have something where like the name of a movie might be a direct reference, like Civil War, Captain America Civil War, they clearly like did their own version. Like it wasn't the comic book iteration of it. And even on the DC side, like Batman v Superman had like 4 different key, seminal comic book stories sort of meshed into one, which might have been too many, but even Christopher Nolan like took inspiration from many comic book stories
Mm-hmm.
to build his world. But yeah, I agree. And by the way, just looking at these photos, it looks like at one point this mystery character really gets to throw Superman around, which again, I mean, you can see a lot of tracking markers here for the padding, but it continues to emphasize to me that this character clearly is on a similar power level to Superman. Ultraman would qualify, or like you said, it could be Parasite completely, because you could replace the entire character because he's just such a it looks like a generic enough design they can completely CGI the look in post production.
Yeah.
That would be very interesting to say the least. And it looks like at some point Superman gets double teamed, and when Mr. Terrific shows up, he's not much of any help. Um, they also like have to bring in all these cranes because they have to hang these people off something, which to do that in the middle of a city, that's obviously one heck of a task. uh, and again, just kind of going back to this hole in the ground that they had dug up, you could clearly tell they had to like take the street apart to dig a hole or something, somehow like make that hole work, and then they have to put the pieces back together again. This is a part of filmmaking where you have to, a lot of times this is part of your permits. When you get that permit to film somewhere, you're like, all right, we're going to do some damage, but then we're going to make sure it's going to look as good as new, if not better than how we found it. And the cost associated with that is shouldered by the production, but that's big money filmmaking right there. I really love, again, just how Art Deco the look of this whole movie is going to be, how Metropolis is going to look. They were shooting indoors. I think, was it yesterday? So they were prepped. This is the crew kind of prepping this stuff. And of course, behind the scenes look at where the studio, where the crew is going to be set up essentially, and then you get to see stuff like the bookstore, the currency exchange, which then leads me to some photos. We already looked at a bunch of this, but this is stuff from yesterday on Monday, where they were filming inside, and they have these extras looking in, and they were being directed at one point to sort of jeer the bad guy. Superman is standing at the entryway, and then another point in time they were just, kind of just doing generic, like, shock reactions. And in the article, the photographer mentions that you could clearly see, if you look in the building, which they couldn't really get pictures of this because they were shooting from so far away on a close set, but it looked like all the members of the Justice League, which now they're referring to as the Justice League. Again, we're speculating, are they Justice League or not? We don't know. They're Lord Tech sponsored, but it looks like, Eddie Kategi's Mr. Terrific, Isabella Merced's Hawkgirl, and Guy Gardner, Green Lantern, played by Nathan Fillion. They were all in the building that these extras are looking into. So whatever was being filmed, it was being filmed indoors yesterday. Do you feel like that has something to do with, the arrest sequence where Superman gets
Maybe.
arrested, or is this something completely different? Because this right here, the Key Bank building, was, I think, doubling for, I believe, Stag Enterprises,
I
or
believe so,
it's
yes.
or it's like one of the other like, so like, what's going on here, do you think?
I think this is just at some point later on in the film. I don't think it's attributed to. Also, I love the underdog. Hold on, go underdog thing on the truck. Wait, go
Oh,
back.
right, this one.
Yeah, you could see the little sticker in between the
Yeah.
wheels. You could see the underdog, which if you don't remember, that got a live action adaptation like 15, 20 years ago, which
Hmm.
was very bad. Had Jim Belushi in it. I did go back and watch the show because my mom watched the cartoon show when she was younger, so I watched it and that was fun. Movie sucked. Don't watch it. But that's from the show and that's good stuff. But anyway, I think this is just entirely separate. I think this is it maybe if I were
Oh
to
shit, Metropolis is
guess.
in Delaware. I just realized this. Sorry, distracting.
No, no, no.
Continue.
Honestly, I mean, I don't like the fact how it actually has like a proper state because I prefer it's like, oh, Metropolis, it's in the of the US. Like, or like, oh, Gotham is in the of this place. That's what I prefer, just Metropolis. It can be anywhere, kind of like what Matt Groening tried to do with Springfield, because there's like 10 million Springfields in the US. It's like
Uh-huh.
the whole thing is like it could be anywhere. You identify it, it's anywhere. So I don't know. I don't love that, but like I don't hate it either. Like it's not like, oh my god, but like I like how it's not. I like how Metropolis is not in fucking. I just love how it's not New York. Like I'll take that. Like I'll take. Okay, cool, Delaware, awesome, that's great. Weird how it's not Ohio, but like because they're filming so much in Ohio, but like it kind of has that. I've been to Delaware once, and it kind of has that like vibe. I didn't go to like a major city in Delaware, but it does kind of have that like Delaware does have that vibe of like kind of like a smaller knit sort of like city
Right.
where it's not skyscrapers, but it's not, you know, but it's not like, like a town. Um anyway, so I think if I were to guess, um that this takes place after the big fight scene, because we did see those canisters where he saves the little girl and the fucking thing gets smashed. We saw both versions. We saw the smashed one and the not smashed one. So I think it takes place after that. I feel like it's maybe the Terrifics, or like, hey, for some reason Stag is calling us. Maxwell Lord wants us to meet with him. Soups, can you come with us? And then that he, or like Stag wants to meet with Superman and he goes off and meets with him for whatever reason. So I feel like this takes place after that. I don't think it has anything to do with the arrest sequence I think you mentioned, but I think it takes place after that because it's like it's just very interesting how you have all these scenes from that shoot and then you have the pictures outside of the key tower right here. So I feel like it has something, obviously, with how filming works. You could film the very beginning scene and then like middle of the third act the next day. Obviously, that is very much the case here. That it never means like, oh yeah, of course it has a correlation. But if I said it did, I feel like it takes place after that. And if it is Stag, it's Stag Enterprises, and it is, and if there is a correlation, then I think it takes place after that big fight sequence with the Terrific / Justice League International / Proto the Authority, whatever the hell it's going to be called. And that's what that is.
And it looks like they also blocked off, like people couldn't get a look at this. This was more of a they had to kind of like keep some of this stuff secret because this might be giving away some real spoilers. And they actually at one point the crane is like hovering above the rooftop of the building. So whatever they were filming up there, they didn't want people to be looking into that. But yeah, Monday they were shooting some stuff there. So this is in the article. It says Monday's scene appears to be connected to that destructive sequence in which background actors reacted to a huge unseen CGI something. They were being told to react to a monster, but we don't know what that was. That Superman was fighting, you're getting smashed into the ground, and saving the girl, saving the squirrel. Key Tower is standing in for Stag Enterprises. And then quietly in Sun's Electronics is what was being, the 75 Public Square was that's the storefront. I think, is that the one where something gets like somebody gets thrown into the window and we see the broken glass and people looking in, or was that was a pet shop? So it's just there's clearly a lot of destruction happening, and we see if I go back into the pictures towards the end of this, we get to see that truck that was smashed late. I think now it's like 2 weeks ago where like this truck got smashed up and the girl is nearby and Superman goes and saves her. So clearly these sequences all are one big thing because it looks like they're going to have Superman fighting somebody indoor somewhere, then on a rooftop, and whatever that thing is going to be completely CGI. But this is from the shoot yesterday, and even though we didn't have pictures of this, Green Lantern, Hawkgirl, and Mr. Terrific were on set, as well as Superman, of course. Now, kind of getting into just wrapping up production in Cleveland, I know we've been talking about it in detail, and if you guys feel like we missed anything, let us know. But the Cleveland.com has been a great resource for this. So just this article talks about how
thanks, guys.
They've just been filming there literally for a month. It looks like it seems like, and they're wrapping up production. They wrapped up production today. So today they were filming at the arcade, which we looked at pictures of just a minute ago. Like the arcade is this right here is part of what would be considered the arcade in Cleveland. So if you're local to the area, you probably have a better idea of what that is. It's an indoors set that they were shooting at, and it was closed off. So this is why we don't really have a ton of pictures today. So they had these cranes parked. So they were probably doing some wire work, and the storefronts were transformed into these more historic buildings, these businesses that Metropolis is known for. Do you think that implies these scenes were more like third act sequences that we're not meant to get an inside look at?
Yeah, I think that as we've said, James Gunn is very careful over spoilers, so he doesn't want to reveal anything.
Yeah.
So I think that might be the case here, where he's just like, nope, I'm not letting you guys ruin this. We're doing this way, so we're gonna and avoid stuff as much as possible. Whatever that may be, who knows? But we'll see. Maybe it's like a big confrontation towards the end of the second act, if I were to guess. But yeah, I think that might be the case here. But yeah, it's definitely brings in the mystery, brings in the questions, brings in the tension and all of that.
Yeah. And we already talked about they've spent roughly $37 million doing this. Now, of course, we talked about the logo of this movie that was publicly released by James Gunn recently. I did want to dive into a little bit of the ComicCon situation. We've got, and when I say the situation, I mean DC's presence at ComicCon. What are you looking forward to the most of the schedule that was released?
Oh, Kite Man, hell yeah! Like that's my go-to. No, but like, I'm curious with the absolute power, because that seems like it's gonna be like that. That seems like it's gonna be like trying to do an ultimate line, like because DC has been trying to do like their own ultimate line for fucking years, They tried to do it with All Star, didn't work. I think they tried it again with something else, didn't work. Now they're trying to do Absolute Power, and I've read the premises for all of them, and they're fine, I guess. Absolute Power just sounds like Darren Aronofsky's shitty Batman that never happened, and then like Wonder Woman sounds like Stan Lee's Wonder Woman. I think I forget what Superman's was, but it was like, that's kind of interesting. But it could be intriguing. But the thing is, I don't really care about anything. Honestly, like, yeah, like the only thing I care about is Kite Man and maybe the Penguin, but that's kind of it. Everything else is just kind of I don't know. It's just Absolute Power could be intriguing. Jim Lee, I'm so fucking done with him. Like, yeah, he just like I have personal issues with Jim Lee. I mean, he's not Dan DiDio, which is like, okay, that's a low bar, but he just comes off as like just a guy who's been in the industry for so long, and he just comes off as a smarmy dickhead. So I like, I don't know, like Jim Lee just like, I remember he's gonna show up at a con that's where we are,
In the
where
Northeast,
Mohegan Sun is,
Connecticut. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, Terrificon. So he's gonna show up, and he's like, it's like fucking like $500 for an autograph or some shit. It's like, who gives a fuck about you? You're a comic book artist. Like, what? Like, you're not Alex Ross. Get the fuck
I
out of
mean,
here.
isn't he the president of like DC
Yeah, but
Comics?
it's like, all right, who gives a fuck about the
Uh,
president? Like, okay, it's the guy making all the terrible decisions at DC. Cool, great. You're part of the reason why DC is in the absolute fucking shitter right now. Congratulations, guy. Anyway, but I don't really care about My Adventures with Superman. I don't really care about, like Gotham City or DC Book Club, whatever. I'm excited for Kite Man. Hell, that's coming up in 2 days. I think it's the 18th, right? I think that's
I think you're right. Yeah.
when it premieres. So I'm stoked for that. Like, I just want to see my boy Kite Man happy and like doing his own thing. The only thing terrible about that show is going to be the inevitable cameo from Harley Quinn, but outside of that, I'm stoked for it because she was in the trailer, and I'm like, fuck off. But Kite Man, I love my boy Kite Man. I hope he finds his happy ending with Golden Glider because my man deserves it. I love Kite Man so much, and I'm so stoked for this show. It just looks really funny. It like looks like genuinely like a good time. And I don't care about diet anime Superman. I'm not reading DC what's happening at DC. I don't care. Gotham City, Batman Cape Crusader, fuck that. Maybe Superman and Lois, but like I don't know what they're gonna reveal. Maybe they reveal something, I don't know. But so yeah, I think Superman and Lois, and then Kite Man, but that's about it. Everything else can kind of fuck off. But and the Penguin, I guess. But everything else, meh. But that's just me.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, look, to me, it's a little underwhelming because I want to see a DC Studios presentation, and if that
Yeah.
gets added to the schedule, that's what I'll be looking for. But Ron has a good question. This is, I think, interesting. Since Superman does have a head start in terms of production, because I know Fantastic Four is about to start production, the cast is over in the UK for that.
Mm.
They're meant to come out like 2 weeks apart. Do you think we're gonna get a delayed release date for Fantastic Four? Is it gonna get moved at this point, or do you think they're still on schedule
I
to?
think they're still on schedule. I think with how Marvel does things, I mean, I'm not trying to like shit on one over the other or anything like that, but it's just like, oh, I kind of like that Metropolis Museum of Art. That's cool.
Yeah, there's a
But I
MoMA in
think,
Metropolis.
um, but yeah, I think it just the way Marvel does things, they're very quick, very like
They're
assembly
efficient.
line.
Yeah.
They're like kind of like a well-oiled machine, but too well-oiled, and it's a little bit too quick. It's just like they probably just shoot everything for like 2 months on a sound stage, and then that's kind of it for them. Um, so which is like but it's like honestly, what can you fucking really do with Fantastic? How much worse can you possibly fucking get? Like most of the cast is really good. Like I know people are fucking sick of seeing Pedro Pascal in everything. I get that, but like he's an interesting choice for Mr. Fantastic. Vanessa Kirby is a great actress. She's great in The Crown. She's great in the Mission Impossible movies. She's extremely talented. So it's like, okay, cool. Joseph Quinn showing off his acting chops in Quiet Place Day One. Like, bro, that movie, that that movie had me fucking sobbing in the theater. Like, by the end of it, I was a fucking mess. Like, that was just beautiful, and I loved it, and he was so good in that. So, and he looks great in Gladiator too, as well. Like, he just looks like he's having a ball there. And then Eben Moss Backrack. I watched The Bear season 3. I finally finished that. Kind of the worst season. Kind of sucked. Not gonna lie. I think I'm over The Bear at this point. Like, nothing will ever be as good as that first season. So, yeah, I'm kind of over it. But he's a good actor. He might be a complete fucking dickhead when it comes to practicals versus CGI, but like outside of that, like it's an interesting cast. Obviously, I'm the pro DC like guy here. I'm not just saying that because we're doing DCU daily. I prefer Superman over the Fantastic Four, and I've pretty much boycotted Marvel at this point. The only things I said this years ago when after I saw fucking Thor shit and blunder, as I like to call it. I
You
pretty
mean
much
Love and
swore off
Thunder? Okay.
everything. No, shit and blunder. That's what I mean.
Okay. Okay.
I pretty much swore off all of Marvel with very few exceptions of Guardians films, which is done now because I mean James Gunn ain't coming back. Then Spider-Man stuff because I love Spider-Man and I'm excited for I'm cautiously optimistic about the animated series that's kind of Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. That looks kind of interesting. And then praying to God they stay the course of Spider-Man 4. Please just let him be miserable. Like, I just want miserable Spider-Man. Is that too much to ask? Anyway, and then I'm curious about Fantastic Four. I want it to be good because it's like this is fourth time's the charm. This is the fourth iteration. Let's get it right this time. Because it's like, they don't deserve all this bullshit that happened to them. So, I want it to be good, but like, I don't know.
Well, look, I think from a production standpoint, it's a good look. Superman is almost done filming. Superman will be filming into August, but once we hit August, it's done.
Yeah.
Whereas Fantastic Four, it looks like they haven't really even started yet.
Yeah.
So I do think there's a chance that that movie has not really quite gone to plan in terms of just the pace of production. So there is a chance. I think that we might end up in a situation where it does get moved, it does get pushed.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, Superman, though, it looks like they're very much on schedule to get this movie out into theaters. It's July 11th, right? Like July 11th, 2026 is when this movie comes out. Whereas I believe Fantastic Four is like July 26th or something like that. So like 2 weeks later. With that said, I wanted to kind of like go quickly just this picture. We have seen Superman fight this, let's Ultraman, Parasite, whoever. We have and sort of win that battle, it looks like. Because you see him, he's sort of knocked out on the ground there, and Superman is like in the air or like he's floating or whatever. He's high up. And then you see there the engineer has basically punched out Mr. Terrific and smashed his back jetpack. Do you think this now is going to be just like a mega fight between Superman and the engineer, and that's where I think we got that video where she's running him into the ground? Like, because that to me,
maybe that might be the case. Again, I'm just giving theories here. Like, I'm just like trying to.
Because I'm just like the
piece
sequence in
everything
which this
together.
all happens, right? Like, you see like the two people fight each other, the two pairs of good guys and bad guys, and then eventually like the bigger good guy and the bigger bad guy are like, all right, well now it's just you and me. So,
Yeah.
but I'd like to imagine that this happens later in the movie, because why would Superman be? Because Rick Flag Sr. doesn't quite fit into this whole sequence. Where is he in all of this? Like, Superman is getting arrested as the military is, helping the engineer and Parasite or Ultraman do their thing. This looks like this might be later in the movie, where like clearly the engineer has become the antagonist, like whether it's for Lex Luthor or Maxwell Lord. I'm just interested in seeing again how all of these, pieces fit
Yeah.
together. It's exciting. It's very exciting. And then Comic-Con, we will cover that as it comes. But getting back to Superman, they're going to be wrapping up filming in Cincinnati. It looks like the Union Terminal is set to close on this Thursday, the 18th. And this has been something that we've looked at the casting notice a few weeks ago or last week. I think it was either early last week or 2 weeks ago, where they were hiring real police officers to come in and shoot in the Union Terminal, which is going to clearly be the stand-in for Hall of Justice, which is what the design for the Hall of Justice was originally inspired by. Um, what do you think they're going to be filming there? Do you think the Hall of Justice is going to have the same significance in the movie? Like, is it going to be the Hall of Justice yet,
I
or is
don't
this
think
just going to
so.
be a building?
I
Like,
think it's just going to be a building for the time being. I think it's just
yeah.
going to be kind of like what it was in the CW verse, the Arrowverse, where it's kind of like this big warehouse, and they're like, might as well use this, I guess. And that's what they did, and that was pretty cool. So I feel like that's what it's gonna like be one. It's like, you know what, I could see it as like a Lord Tech or a Stag Enterprises or a Luthor Corp. Like it's an extra like asset that they have,
Mm-hmm.
and they kind of just use it. That's like, maybe it's like, oh, Lord Tech or Lex Luthor or whatever, like the main villain is like getting onto them. So like, okay, well what do we do? We have nowhere to go. Well, okay, let's go to just this place, this secret asset that we have, and then it's this like fucking, maybe it's like an abandoned building or something. And and they're like, all right, we'll like stay out here, formulate a plan, like that kind of thing. And then they eventually, when like Lex Luthor fucking gets arrested by the end of the movie, he has to sell off a bunch of assets to like, and he sells this off, and then like Batman, or it got bought out by Bruce Wayne. Oh, that's interesting. Or like it's bought out by Stag or Lord Tech or something like that. And then it becomes Hall of Justice for the time being. And then maybe it gets bought out by Lord Tech, and then they use it for the Hall of Justice for the Justice League International, and then maybe eventually because I saw the fans talking about when one of the last live shows we did, they're like, I want to see the Watchtower. So it's like
Mm-hmm.
maybe
I
when
think it was
Justice League
Ron who said that.
International
Yeah.
like like folds, because Lord Tech is Maxwell Lord is a douchey fucking businessman who's kind of corrupt. He's not evil. Well, at least he at first wasn't evil. And so, like, okay, he's a douchebag. He'll get arrested eventually. And then they're like, oh, well, this stands for something terrible. We can't use this. And then they use the Watchtower in like a Justice League movie. That could happen. Like, I could see that happening.
That
But
would be
yeah, I think
interesting. That's a good. I
um,
didn't think of it that way. That would be
like,
fun.
yeah,
Yeah.
just like a whole bunch of theories thrown at you. Like, let me know in the comments, like, what you think of when it comes to the Hall of Justice. But yeah, that could be like a few, because I liked what the Arrowverse, like, oh, it's this abandoned warehouse, let's use it, and then they did, and then I feel like they could like do something like kind of like tongue in cheek, funny for that
Yeah.
sort of thing, or it's an actual terminal, like it's actually just a train station, and they're like, okay,
Because
and
in
then it
real
like gets
life now, it's like a
destroyed, and
museum. Like, and that's how it
yeah,
is. And so they'll have to, whatever they do, they're gonna have to like really like dress it up accordingly, right?
yeah.
Yeah. But hey, like this is it seems like the last frontier as far as Superman shooting in Ohio goes, because they've been filming in Cleveland a lot. They've been doing some filming in Cincinnati, but we really haven't seen a ton. But this seems to be
Meanwhile,
the
at the Hall
big
of Justice,
this seems to be the big
somebody
one.
posted that in the comments. Meanwhile, at the Hall of Justice, our super friends formulate a plan to defeat the Injustice League, or Legion of Doom. Sorry, Legion of Doom was where that started.
That would be, I mean, hey, we got a Lex Luthor who's got cuts on his head. Maybe that's where Lex Luthor comes into play. I'm excited. I want to see. We're gonna be here talking about it. Like, of course, we get any pictures, any kind of insight, we will bring that
Hell
to you
yeah.
guys on Thursday. And hopefully tomorrow we'll see what they're doing. Tomorrow might be like an off day, because I know James Gunn posted last week that they were shooting like 6 days a week. So long days. And so I'm sure they could use a day or two to kind of relax, because today they wrapped up filming in Cleveland. So now they've got a date in Cincinnati on the 18th. On this Thursday, we know that they have permits built out or submitted and approved to keep potentially filming across Ohio all the way through August. So we know that they will continue to have dates available, even if it is just for reshoots or if it is part of the principal photography. So we will continue to follow this, of course, as it, as they move around different locations, as you get any kind of insights and, images and video. But to kind of end the show, DC Film News posted this. This is all over the internet. It was trending on X, and of course, I've got this on Threads. We are finally getting our first look, and listen to Kevin Conroy, the late great Kevin Conroy's final performance as Batman in Crisis on Infinite Earths Part 3. So obviously a third part of this ongoing series of movies from DC Animation. It sort of gets into like the multiverse of it, and you getting against this classic Batman the Animated Series iconography, the scenes where Batman's sort of standing on the roof, and yeah, and if and the line there from Kevin Conroy, and if it has to end, at least I go out like this, being Batman, as
Like
his
that
ball
just
gets.
like
It's
that just it'll be enough to make a
uh,
grown man cry. Like that's like
yeah,
it kind of reminds me of a little bit, even though we don't know. I don't know what officially like what he died of. I don't know if he knew he was gonna die or not. If he did and he said this line, that's just fucking hard as fuck. If he didn't, it still works, but it kind of reminds me of like the final. Again, I gotta bring my Doctor Who knowledge into here, but like one of the final things that William Hartnell said in the Three Doctors, his final on-screen performance as the first Doctor, where he's like, where it was, what did he say? He was like, I shudder what you will do without me, was the final line he said, and it's just like oh, that just hurts, like knowing now, like in hindsight of like hearing that, and then of what happened a couple of years later when he finally passed away. It's just like, yeah, we kind of shudder of what we'll do without you, and it's not the same out of
yeah,
with those three doctors that we no longer have with us, but or four if you count John Hurt. But yeah, it's just like hearing that, just like with all that triumphant sort of kibosh behind it of Kevin Conroy. It's like, if it has to end, at least I'm Batman. Like,
yeah.
at least, you know, um, if Kevin
It's
Conroy's legacy, like his most, iconic character that he played, who remains arguably the most definitive version of said character, at least he gets to go out voicing
yeah,
him properly. And you know what?
yeah.
If
It's
that's the
yeah.
case, then that's okay.
Yeah. I mean, and he left us not too long ago, after a private battle with colon cancer, which
Yours.
is, it's a very painful thing to have to struggle through. But he, of course, still gave us this one last glimpse at the definitive animated voice of Batman for sure, and he even got to play Batman in the live action for a little bit in the Arrowverse. One of the things that
Hmm.
I think, regardless of how good that appearance was or not, it's he got to be on set and actually physically be Batman for a little bit, right? Like it's
Yeah.
a dream for him. He said himself, he was just like, I'm just having so much fun. I never thought I would get to do this, other than just as like to in whatever shape or capacity that that his character was on screen. He wasn't really you know what the character that he voiced in the animated shows, but just to kind of see him essentially like live out. I mean, most of us, most people don't get a chance to live out their dream, I think, and he um really had an understanding for the character in a way that was so fundamentally definitive, like you said, that most actors you know, don't necessarily haven't really been able to replicate that. And I mean, Hamish Linklater's got a job ahead of him, with Batman Cape Crusader. The trailer gives me some hope that we got recently, but I'm cautiously optimistic about it now. But this is a great send off, a really, really great send off. And I love that the artwork here and everything matches that Batman the Animated Series look. And you've got, of course, Mark Hamill, voicing the Joker. So they meet one last time. Oh, and then you get that, of course, iconic image from Batman the Animated Series too. So I just, I'm if not for anything else, that's what I'm going to watch this for.
Yeah, I mean, the Crisis on Infinite Earths movies have not been very good from what I've heard. So this is probably going to be the bright spot in a very crappy trilogy. Poor Crisis on Infinite Earths. It's such an iconic story, yet it can't get a good adaptation.
The Arrowverse tried it.
Yeah, and then it's like this
here
is
in
trying it.
animated
Like
form.
I feel bad for the Tomorrowverse because it was one of those things I felt like it was supposed to be grander than it was, and I love the animation. Like I love that like the kind of old school retro kind of animation style to it. But like I mean, some of them were good. Like Man of Tomorrow and The Long Halloween Parts 1 and 2 were good. Beware My Power had some good notes. Justice Society had some good notes here and there. But I've heard Legion of Superheroes was terrible. I heard the fucking Crisis trilogy was terrible. I heard War World was terrible. So I feel kind of bad, but it's like they tried to like do something so different from the DC AMU, which was New 52 heavy, which not a lot of people liked because not a lot of people liked the New 52. So I feel like they tried to do something different, and then with how everything turned out with like Warner Brothers getting bought out by 16 different companies over the course of like 3 years, that they couldn't really do what they wanted to do, and it kind of sucks. So but at least like we got this out of it. Like I guess we got like the final proper line of this character said by this definitive actor, so I guess that's something, right?
Yeah,
probably not enough, but
the kid in me gets a proper conclusion to this in a way that in a way that even the Flash couldn't really provide for what it attempted to do. It's something similar with the multiverse of DC. But this is, I like it. I like that we are going to get to see and hear Kevin Conroy's voice one last time. And, as fans of Batman and just DC in general and comic book animation, Kevin Conroy is one of the most iconic, if not the iconic voices that you would associate with that. But hey, guys, Superman's basically finished filming in Cleveland. Let us know in the comments what you guys think about all the pictures from across. If you're just finding us, then go back in the playlist, check out all this coverage that we have got of the movie that's been filming out in Ohio. They continue to film out there. They're going to be in Cincinnati this Thursday. It looks like tomorrow might be more of an off day, but we will still be here to share any kind of news updates out there. We're going to try to dive in a little bit deeper and figure out like what's going on with this Ultraman or Parasite, like John, you speculated, character that's been fighting Superman alongside the Engineer, and we're going to try to get into the history of the Parasite character as well as potentially Ultraman, how that might fit into the movie if that's the route they end up going in. But yeah, rest in peace, Kevin Conroy, the definitive Batman, the voice of Batman that a lot of us grew up loving. And yeah, a lot of us hear the voice of Batman as Kevin Conroy's voice when we read Batman comics. So yes, absolute legend. And we hopefully we'll be able to see that baton get picked up and carried on forward with Hamish Linklater playing Batman in Cape Crusader, which comes out soon. The Kite Man Hell Yes starts out this Thursday, right, on the 18th. So John, we're going to be here. We've got lots to talk about. We're going to be reviewing Kite Man. We're going to be reviewing Batman Cape Crusader. We're going to be looking at the Penguin when it comes out. We've got Joker Folie à Deux. Superman's going to continue filming, so we've got lots more to talk about there. I'm sure we're going to get more pictures, and as we do, we will dive into those as well. I'm excited to see just how all of these elements come together ultimately. Whether it's Superman saving a squirrel, whether it's Superman saving a girl, whether it's him fighting the Engineer.
That's America's ass.
That's yeah. There we go. Yeah. Well, hey, this has been a good show. I really enjoyed it. I mean, there's so much to talk about. God damn, there's so much to talk about. But
hopefully there's enough, but probably never will be enough.
Yes. And hey, Comic-Con's coming up. We're going to be talking all about Comic-Con. Everything that happens at Comic-Con, we're going to be talking about it. I am still willing to bet there will be some surprises that we have not seen announced yet. So the Hall H presentation, we'll see what they've got to bring to the table, what new projects are going to be, announced, released, maybe new directors, new actors being cast in roles. We might see some surprises. Even though James Gunn might not be there in person, he might send a video package, from the set of Superman. So we're going to definitely get into all of that. But yeah, guys, thanks so much for watching. As always, John, your expertise and your insight is greatly appreciated. We missed you last Wednesday, and I know that we were both on vacation the rest of the week, but we did get up to talking about Lobo and how Jason Momoa might enter into the fray. We have got a lot of comments from you guys to get over into the show, so we're gonna bring those in and talk about them in the days to come. So definitely check back in. We'll get into all the fan theories as we possibly can. Today was such a packed show, we didn't really have a chance to get into the comments, but you guys were live in the chat dropping questions and theories. We love to get into those. It's going to be interesting to see if what character that mystery man and the Black Mask ends up being. And you guys have some great ideas. And once again, rest in peace, Kevin Conroy. Go check out Crisis on Infinite Earths Part 3. But until the next episode of DC Daily, John, hopefully we get more insight into what they're shooting at Union Terminal. I'm excited. I want to see what that's about. Maybe we'll get some prep photos from tomorrow when they're setting it up, because it's a museum people can go visit, and it's going to be closed on Thursday, but I think it might be open tomorrow. So if anybody's out there and you're going to be in Cleveland, in Cincinnati, then send us some photos. Tell us what's going on down there. What are they going to be filming down there? But until tomorrow, John, as always, go out there, watch something DC related, come back and talk to us about it. We'd love to hear from you. Drop your comments down below, hit the subscribe button so that way when we have new videos going up. Hit the like button if you enjoyed watching this, and if you hit the notifications bell, then you'll know when we go live. So we'll be back tomorrow with another show. We've got a full Oso Curious show tomorrow as well. We're going to be reviewing Fly Me to the Moon. We're going to be reviewing Long Legs. And as always, we'll have a live DCU daily, so we'll go through all the latest in the world of DC. Until then, John, Ultraman or Parasite?
We're going to Cincinnati. No, we're going to Cincinnati.
Exactly. We're on to Cincinnati.
Well, you think having a 37-year-old...
We're on to Cincinnati. It's nothing about the past, nothing about the future. It's right now we're preparing for Cincinnati.
Okay,
on to Cincinnati.
I had to.